What's up, guys? Super excited. Today we're going to be working on some factoring sums and difference of cubes and solving factored and quadratic inequalities. So today we're going to start with the factoring sums and difference of cubes. Right? And one cool thing that we can use to kind of help us here is this acronym SOAP, right? SOAP. And what it stands for is same, opposite, always positive. All right, so if we take a look at these sum and difference of cubes, right? Let's look at this one here. We have a to the third plus b to the third, and that's equal to. Now notice, right? We have this a plus b. That's that same, right? Because what we're doing is we're using the same sign that's in the sum of the cube, right? So if it's a cubed plus b cubed, right, we're going to start with a plus b. Right, then it's going to go opposite. So since this is a sum, we have this plus here. It's going to be a squared minus a times b. Right, then the last one, this plus b squared, that's always going to be positive. Right, so if we're looking at the difference of cubes, we have this a cubed minus b cubed. Right, it's going to be the same. So the first one is a minus b because it's the same. Then it's opposite, so it's going to be a squared plus a times b. And then the last one, again, is just always positive. All right, so let's look at an example here. Let's look at number 1. All right, we have 8x cubed minus y cubed. All right, so if we're looking, we know it's going to be a difference of cubes. Right, and we can clearly see, right, this x cubed and y cubed, but the question is, what do we change this 8 into, right? Well, what we can do is think about 8 is going to be something raised to the third power, right? So when we kind of break it down, what we can think of is, well, I know 8 is 2 to the third power, right? Because 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So we can rewrite this function here, this 8x cubed minus y cubed, into 2x cubed 2 cubed times x cubed minus y cubed. Right, and that might make it a little bit easy for us to split up, because now what we can do is we can write it as this a minus b times a squared plus a times b plus b squared, right? Because we know a is just going to be 2x. Right, and another way we can kind of write this to make it even easier to see, and I'll kind of write it up here, right, is we can say this is 2x cubed minus y cubed. All right, so this is going to be 2x, and then the b in this case is y, so it's going to be 2x minus y, because we're following our SOAP, right, same. Then we're going to have a squared, which we know is going to be 2 squared times x squared, right, which is going to be 4x squared. All right, the next sign has to be the opposite, so it's going to be plus. A times b is 2x times y, which is 2 times x times y. And that's going to be plus, because it's always positive, b squared, which in this case is y squared. Right, so our factored form would be 2x minus y times 4x squared plus 2xy plus y squared. All right, let's look at the next one. We have 125 times m raised to the third power plus 27b raised to the third power. All right, so we got to think 125 and 27. Can we rewrite that? Well, we could think of it like this. I know 125, that's the same thing as 5 raised to the third power, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. So we can rewrite this as 5 times m all raised to the third power plus 27. Well, that's just the same thing as 3 raised to the third power, right? Because 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. So we can rewrite this as 3b all raised to the third power. So we have our a, we have our b, And now we can just rewrite it using the rules for the sum of cubes, right? So first, we write a plus b, which is going to be 3m plus, 5m plus 3b. Remember, the first one's always the same. Then it's going to be opposites. We have a squared, so 25m squared. Opposite, so this time it's minus a times b, just 5m times 3b, so we have 15mb. And the last one is always positive, and it's going to be b squared, so we have this 3b squared, which ends up being 9b squared. All right, and the last one, I'm running out of room a little bit, so I'm going to rewrite it down here. But first, I have this 3c raised to the third power minus 192d raised to the third power. And right away, we can kind of see 3 is going to be a problem for us, right? Because we can't do anything raised to the third power and get 3, not easily at least. But what we can notice is, okay, well, maybe 3 is the greatest common factor, which it ends up being a greatest common factor. We can pull out this 3, and we get c cubed minus 192 divided by 3 is 64. Right, so we get 3 times c cubed minus 64d raised to the third power. All right, and again, this 64, now we can kind of change that around. We can rewrite this as like 3 times c cubed minus 64. Well, that's just 4 raised to the 4 raised to the third power. So we can rewrite this as 4 times d all raised to the third power. All right, now we just followed the rules for the difference of cubes. And we know we're going to have a 3 on the outside, so we can just put that on the outside and forget about it, right? We don't have to worry about it anymore. We're going to have a minus b, because it's always the same first, right? So it's going to be c, let me put some parentheses here, minus 4d, and that's going to be times a squared plus ab plus b squared. So it's going to be c squared plus, remember it's the opposite, c times 4d, so we'll write 4cd, and that's going to be plus, because the last one's always positive, this 4d all raised to the second power, right? So 4 squared is 16, d squared is just d squared. And I know I'm kind of running out of room here, but we'll put some parentheses and brackets, and that'll be that, right?